Oh, yeah. On today's show, that's for Jimmy and Beth. On today's show, we are talking about all the models that ChatGPT has been releasing, or OpenAI rather has been releasing this week. So we could have done a whole show on just 4.1, 4.0 nano, 4.1 mini, but now we get to even talk about O3 and O4 mini high. See, even I have to get all these names right. They've been releasing a lot of stuff. This show is to help you get caught up while we get caught up on what do these models do. Are they exciting? Some people are claiming they're AGI. Spoiler, they're not. But like lots of people are excited. Well, let's figure out why they're excited about these different models. We will do examples and tests. I'll share what we've been able to work with since then and other use cases as well. But at the end of this show, you're going to know, hey, at least I know what 4.1 and the variants of that one plus O3 and O4 mini high, what they can do for you and why it would be even valuable for you to be testing them. And do you even have access to them? We'll talk about that too. This is the Daily AI Show. Today is April 17th, 2025. With me today, Beth, Junmi, Andy, and I'm Brian. And yeah, guys, let's kind of dive into this. I don't know, Andy. We usually default to you. I don't know if that's like we should always, but I don't want to put you on the spot. But you are usually great about doing a summary of where we are.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we're talking just about OpenAI today.
Correct.
So OpenAI models and the range of models that they've produced. And I want to just give the audience a quick tip on where you can get a beautiful graphic, because a graphic interface to play with all of the different models, not using them, but just to compare their features and to see what OpenAI says about their own models. We're going to explain it to you today. But if you go to platform.openai.com/docs/models, or just if you go to openai.com and you just look on the left and search for all of the different navigation elements there, you'll find your way to their docs, and then you'll find your way to the models page. And they have beautiful, like OpenAI is really impressing me with the quality of their documentation and their new OpenAI Academy, which gives you videos and other resources to interact with it. Great. There's models coming up there now. And I want you to just notice that they're featuring 4.1, O4 mini, and O3. Those are the ones that they want you to really pay attention to. But down below that, you'll see them categorized into the different sort of levels of what they have. The reasoning models, the flagship chat models, and then I don't know where they place 4.5 preview, but I don't even see it there. It is, however, in the model comparator. So go back up to the top and you'll see there it says compare models. Click on that. Now you can select any one of the models and read a side-by-side comparison of what their features are. One of the things to notice is what was the knowledge cutoff date for this one. And if that model doesn't have search capability built into it, then you're looking at a model that you might want to deprecate in your mind because you put it aside because it's old enough and it doesn't have more recent knowledge. But the ones that they're featuring typically have very recent cutoff dates, at least in mid to late 2024. Okay.
Yeah, May 31st to 24 is what it's saying. But I thought I had read that O3 was like June or something like that. So maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, May 31st is what it's saying for all three of those models, meaning O4 mini, O3, and 4.1.
Right. Which are the featured ones.
Yeah. For the three that are up there on the screen, they all say May 31st.
Yep.
But big difference here, right, Andy? When we're looking at this is 4.1 here.
Yeah.
Your context window is over 1 million as compared to on O3 and O4 high, O4 mini, excuse me, and O3. I keep saying the wrong words on there. 200,000 window and output of a max of 100,000 on it. So, and by the way, 4.1 is only available right now inside the API. But this is a great
ground, right?
Yeah, this is a great resource. Honestly, I didn't know this was here. They've really laid this out. This and the previous page that you were just talking about, that does make it very easy. I kind of wish I had known this was here before the show.
Well, I'm glad you dug deep into it, because now we're going to get a real user's point of view about playing with the different models. I'll turn that back to you guys.
Yeah, I have a couple things, lined up just because I wanted to make sure I had, show and tells today. But let me throw it over to you guys. Have you guys had a chance to play with? I will say I've played mostly with O3, not as much with the O4 Mini. And yesterday I showed a demo, but I can show it again today since it's on brand for what we're talking about today. With what I was really impressed with 4.1 in the playground, I can show that same demo just to show where the difference between 4.0. However, on our super secret squirrel project outside of this show that we can't talk about in 8.8n, I have definitely been playing. You guys know this, obviously. I've definitely already been playing with 4.1 and comparing it to Gemini 2.5 for cost comparison, but obviously quality of output, and also testing against results and doing side-by-side comparisons of workflow nodes for 4.1 mini and nano. And I'm not through that evaluation phase yet, so I can't really say much onto like, oh, there's a definitive difference for this. My hunch is, and Beth, you've mentioned this, so maybe you could say more to this, but I think you're the one on the show that's kind of like kept reminding us like, but hold on, guys, don't forget. And I know today is about the GPT models, the OpenAI models, but you've brought it up before too, like that Gemini is a cheap model by comparison. 2.5 is a cheap model by comparison, like, and not just a little bit cheaper, like a lot of it cheaper in a lot of ways. So that has to come into the conversation too, especially when it comes to the APIs. But yeah, let me throw it to you guys. Do you guys have any demos? Carl joined us, by the way, too. Go ahead, Jimmy.
I think it's important for our viewers who have not used any of the models and know what's going on. One of the things that was mentioned on their live event was that they admit they know all of their naming conventions are terrible, right? They now have a model called 4.1, even though they already have a model called 4.5, and they don't relate to each other at all. Yeah. So I think it's important for us to go through and identify what the new models are, what they're supposed to be improvements on to their predecessors, who their predecessors are, and what their primary focus is. So just give me 60 seconds and I can go through that. Well, you can say that.
Awesome. The only thing I was going to add to that, Jimmy, is I'll go one deeper than that. I heard that O3 is not even the same O3 that Carl has, because Carl in the pro count is a benchmark O3 and ours is a lighter version of O3, although they have the exact same names. But go ahead with your 60 seconds, because like it is kind of
why would they make some of them called 4.0 and others 0.4? What? That is so inherently confusing.
Yeah.
Okay, so quick rundown. All right. So the O3 is a replacement for O1, right? And just like Brian said, what O3 they're talking about is different than the previous O3 that it is in Pro, and those kinds of things. But just simple broad strokes. O3 is a replacement for O1. It's got huge improvements compared to O1. All right. It's considered, they consider it state-of-the-art level for reasoning, and it has full access to all of the tools that OpenAI has released, like web search and those kinds of things.
It's their most recent release, right? It's the last one that has been released in this succession of releases of the last weeks.
Right. And so that is its main purpose. That's essentially the big heavy duty model, right? Next is the difference between O3 mini and O4 mini, right? So that's a little more easier to go. That's a simple upgrade. It's improved stats, all of those kinds of things. Now, the big confusing one, for me anyways, was 4.1, right, is an API dev-focused update so that it has all of the features and some slight improvement, like a 20% bump over 4.0. And they recently updated 4.0 with a bunch of features and updates and improvements as well. So if you're on the dev side, you want to use the API, 4.1 is supposed to get you those advancements that you've seen and heard about so far in 4.0. And then there's finally 4.5, which was essentially just an experiment for them. I think I'm hoping that this isn't an opportunity, or they're not going to take this down and shelve it, because I liked the concept of what its primary focus was, and that was nuanced and creative development and writing and output and things like that. But it was also their most expensive model to run. So they, like they said in their live, they said they are hopefully temporarily shelving that model so that they can use all the compute and everything towards these other models. You know, and there's been a lot of chatter that's, go ahead.
I'm just going to add one point of information. So what Jimmy just said is O3 is their biggest, brightest, smartest, powerful model.
Yeah.
It costs exactly 5 times more to use than 4.1 for both input and output tokens. So it's still not expensive, really. If you were to really try to, rack up a lot of expense on it, it would be very hard to do that, because all of these models are, relatively speaking, cheap. But GPT 4.1, the flagship GPT model from OpenAI for all kinds of complex tasks, and with particular attention to its ability to generate code in response to text direction, that kind of agentic coding capability that has been made famous by Claude 3.7 Sonnet, and then also matched by Gemini 2.5 Pro. This is their latest and greatest, and it's relatively inexpensive. It's $2 per million input tokens and $8 per million output tokens. And then if you choose the mini model, the distilled model of that, it's half that cost. So it works really well. I just wanted to put some numbers to it.
So essentially, that's broad strokes of all of the new models compared to their current or direct predecessors. There's been a lot of chatter on, people figuring out why they're going this way, what's the strategy and things like that. And I think we've mentioned the other day that it does seem to be a way to shore up their dev offerings because of all of these other direct to dev type of improvements we've seen. Talk about Gemini 2.5, and we know that Claude 3.7 Sonnet is, at the top and most used, especially in all of these development tools such as Cursor and whatnot. That's sort of their go-to model. So if there's any additional questions, let us know, but hopefully that orders them for you. And hopefully this will be a little better of a cleanup. And what I suppose is when they release GPT-5, it can do everything, take out your recycling, butter your toast, and then they'll get rid of every other model. They'll just rename it a component of GPT-5, and then we'll only have variations of GPT-5. And the whole reason they're doing it is just to clean up the naming structure. I'm pretty sure.
We kind of made fun of Google when they were originally Bard, and then we're like, Bard, they're like, yeah, it's for Shakespeare, and like, all right, and then they renamed it Gemini and kind of went with an Astra and a space exploration type naming convention. And by the way, so glad they did that when they did that. I think it's much easier and all that, but I think Google saw the light and we're like, no, we need something we can build on for a long term. And I feel like really nothing's stopping OpenAI from doing that. Like, come up with, like, whether it's space or whether it's some other version, come up with a naming convention that they feel like they can own the rights to or whatever, and reorganize this a bit. Because, like, well, I'll bring it back on the screen, but like you were just talking about the 3 different models of 4.1. We have 4.1, 4.1 mini. Now we've had minis before, but now we have nanos. Nano just makes me think of the iPod Nano from back in the day. Like you had the Nano. The Nano was the one that like was a little square that stood, you know, like you could go running with and stuff like that. So like now I'm like, okay, now we have nanos. Now we're getting into Apple territory of naming conventions and stuff like that. But if people are curious for the 4.1 specifically, and to go back to what you said, Jimmy, just to slow down here, these 4.1 models are not currently available inside your ChatGPT instance. Like you can't sign into ChatGPT and use one of these three 4.1s. You would either have to go to the playground, which is this. That's the playground. Everybody can get into it. The only difference is you have to put a few bucks towards the API cost. So you can put $5 on it. It's a pay to play. It's not, I'm paying $20 and I get access to whatever ChatGPT has in it, blah, blah, blah. This is the playground. So it's platform.openai.com, same starting point that Andy gave us. But then it's /playground. It's going to ask you to log in. If you get an error with like trying one of these models, it's probably because you don't have any money behind the API. I think OpenAI still gives you some free credits and maybe some things like that. But truthfully, if you want to play with them, you put $5 on there. It's gonna, unless you just blow it out, it's gonna last you enough to go play with it. So everybody can use 4.1. You just can't use it inside of ChatGPT. The other option, obviously, is just to call the API. That would be like in Make or Zapier or N8N or any automation tool that connects through that has an API connector or agent, if you will. I don't really like using that term, but a lot of people are. Then you could obviously call to any of the available OpenAI models that we're talking about. But it gets confusing, right, for the audience, because some of these things are released that everybody can use. Some of these things are now on the pro account at $200 a month. Then we have these other models that are back on the plus account. Then you have models that you can't even touch unless you're doing the pay to play, which is the API. But back to my 4.1 point really quick. If you want to know the order, it's 4.1 is the big one. Mini is the middle one. Nano is the small one, the tiniest one. Okay. And you can see that pretty quickly by just looking at the price per 1 million tokens. On the 4.1, input is $2 per million. Mini is 40 cents per million. Nano is 10 cents per million. And then on the output, $8, $1.60, 40 cents. Significant differences there. So if you are going to play with this, just like me, inside any API, then what you want to basically do is test and see how far and how good of an output you can get on the lowest cost model. So start at Nano and see what kind of quality response you get. Then go test it against Mini, then go test it against 4.1, then go outside of the OpenAI sphere and go to your other models if you want to test against 2.5 or 3.7 from Claude, or Perplexity, Sonar, and Sonar Pro, which I test all the time. I love the Sonar models and their deep research models too. So there's a lot, it goes. And Beth and I, over 2 years ago, we're both teaching inside the AI exchange. And, Beth, one of the things we were initially looking at is evaluation of models. And, oh man, if we just take temperature and add that to every single one of those evaluations, or top P or something like that, it explodes, right? You would get to a point where you're now saying, okay, I'm evaluating 20 different possible combinations. I've got my models inside and outside of OpenAI. I've got my costs. Now I can affect temperature. Now I can affect beyond that. Most people don't, but top P and things like that are other sliders and abilities that you can move. And all of that will affect ultimately what your results are. And it can get maddening. So you have to come up with a system. And Beth was great about this. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about evaluation, but what would be your top tip today, Beth? Would you still go back to like that Google Sheet idea, or would you maybe do it differently if somebody wanted to, like, I want to play with APIs, but I don't really know how to do this evaluation piece and keep everything organized?
So I've talked a couple times on this show about Typing Mind. It's a lifetime license. You buy it once. I am not entirely sure how much it is. It may be $99 now. I think I got it for $79 when I bought it. But it is basically a wrapper for any API key that you have, and it has model comparison, and it lets you it gives you an interface to engage with few-shot prompting, which means just giving it examples of what you might give it, and then give it the example of what it might say back to you. So it looks at that as a map and a pattern. And so that's primarily what I think. It's also really important to have a set of questions that you ask or images that you prompt to get drawn, so that you can see over time what is helpful, and you can compare like back-to-back comparisons. One of the things that I think is different from Gemini 2.5 and what we've just got in O3, or even 4.1 as like the workhorse, is there is something in Gemini, I am convinced, that makes it preserve it, like make there is something in Gemini 2.5, I believe, and actually I think it's in all of the Gemini models, that that sets like, okay, well, that's enough, right? I've done enough. I'm gonna stop here. And in code, that's very, very bad, right?
Yeah,
Like I've been running, I've been having it write Python scripts to do the search and replace thing in our transcripts,
right.
which does not because that's the way that it happens. And it did it great for 3 days, and then it just gave me all the corrections for the day before. I'm like, no, it's a whole new day. There was no June Me Fallon for the search and replace that I do for
is
the
there?
mistranscription of Jimmy. So that's what I would say. I would say look at your workflows and what you really want to have the AI accomplish for you. Identify one that's just beyond, right? It's not getting this, really. It's not coming in the way that you would expect or that you want, and use that as the measure. And then once it achieves that, now you're going to go to the next thing. The other thing that I would say to that is that the prompting guide that came out for 4.1 is really good,
Yeah, it
right?
is.
So when you're measuring stuff and you're saying, wow, this isn't as good as the previous one, make sure you're following the prompting instructions of the people who built the model, because that can get you enormously far.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, when they came out like with the 4.1 is not in the custom GPTs right now. It's still 4.0. But when they came out with their prompting guide and instructions for GPTs, and then I applied that to the custom GPTs I built for clients and stuff, instantly made them better. So I 100% support what Beth is saying, which is pay attention to what the builders are saying is the right way to use it. And more than likely, it's not that like prompting has changed drastically. We've done shows where like new prompting techniques for this year, because you do need to update what you're doing. You know, how you break out tasks, how big the prompts can be are way different than when Beth and I first started teaching this 2 years ago. And how I teach it today, it does require a bit of updating, but they're putting out these documents and they're making available. And we've talked about Anthropic and Claude and how they have like the let us help you build a better prompt. I mean, those are free tools that they have available as part of their console and stuff. So definitely lean on those where they are. Carl, we haven't heard from you. I'm curious. You know, you're obviously talking to clients in and out. It's only really been this week. I know a lot of times you're the one, you know, suggesting models and things like that to the clients versus them maybe necessarily asking. But have you dug into either the 4.1 models through the API, or have you had any time to deal with O3? Not in your pro account though. That's the difference. Like O3 or O4 mini.
Yeah. So I think there is going to be an O3 Pro that's coming in a couple of weeks. So that'll be fun to play with. I've actually applied 4.1, O3, and 4.1 again to a couple of client projects that we're trying to build. One, we're trying to develop an agent that helps on a scheduled basis extract information from government posting bid sites and then essentially create the bids for them. So there's kind of that element to it, but on a very specific thing that the client's doing. And then So I think what was we were trying to use 2.5. Google just wouldn't. I think what Beth was saying is correct. When we were trying to apply it, there's just some times when we kind of if we find a roadblock. But then when we started using 4.1, there's just certain problems that would be solved and became a lot easier for that application to move forward. Same thing with this other application where we do a lot of financial input analysis data for accounting clients. And I think that one, just in the middle stages of finishing that one, like O3 really helped with it. Just having that capability. So these are all APIs. And then there's another one, there's an automation that we're racking our brains out of in terms of contact research, where we're like trying to replace contacts. 2.5 was okay, but the instructions are so specific. So I think we're gonna do that today with O3 and see what comes out of that. So we're pretty excited, but I am excited about O3 Pro because we've done business, I don't know what we call them, business scenario planning with a couple of businesses and really push limits on how they can apply it. So those are the things that we've been doing from a client side. So it's funny because yesterday also did a presentation to I don't know if you all know EO. It's like an entrepreneur's, it's such a I don't know if it's an incubator for entrepreneurs, and then as they grow their companies and it becomes bigger, they still have the meeting every month or every week, probably every month. And so we've been doing a lot of meetings with those groups, and it was interesting to essentially run O3 for them. And then that session turned in a little bit of a 20-25 minute. Every single one wanted to have like some sort of, hey, try this scenario. And it got more exciting as more of a business planning, business strategy tool for them, and to show them like, hey, this is some of the stuff that we that you can do with it. So just the use cases we've had just this past week.
I think I'm excited too about what you're going to say, because I know like my boss, Jake, who has the Pro, he's like, why am I paying for Pro? And I think there's going to be a back and forth of that, right? There's going to always be this like ebb and flow of like, oh, I should pay the 200. And then Plus members get O3 and you go, wait, hold on, I pay $200 a month and now they have the same model. But then you come out and you're like, no, there'll be an O3 Pro, as there should be. There should continue to be the best benchmark tested model available at that higher price point. And then eventually, we've heard of this, what's that $2,000 or that $20,000 a month enterprise mark? What does that look like? And there should be something for those use cases too. I highly, hey, you want to pay $2,000 or $20,000 a month? You absolutely should get the best of the best, you know?
Yeah. I do think though that, over the past year, just having the 200 account, for those who are thinking about it, like it's useful for us because we use it every day. But if you don't, like, that Plus account is enough. What was sad is Anthropic's version, where they had like a 100 tier account and then a $200 account, which is sort of like, unless you're a power user, then I think like that makes sense. But usually you can get away with that Plus account. Just remember though, I think in a room, how many times have we presented in rooms, and when I ask people, hey, how many of you pay? It's like 5%. So remember, just not everybody knows about anything about what the capabilities are as well. So if you do plan to use, just monitor your use, because you may not even need, honestly, that 10 deep research is, I would find, enough for most people. Like, unless you're doing a lot of like crazy activities, like not crazy, but like repeated use, do you really need, outside of the FOMO, do you need that? And I would say for most people, no, you don't even need it.
I think when I think about it, it isn't deep research. That's the deal breaker for me, because Perplexity and Gemini can do right. It does not seem like the deep research that ChatGPT does is so much better than the others that it's worth the 200 for me. And the decision for me is, am I going to use O3 enough that that would justify that? And like if I can use O3 via API sometimes, I can do them for a lot less than the 180 more that I would be spending a month
Yeah.
to be able to get that kind of feature. The thing for me is when it's got a limit, I now start to second guess myself. Like, is this really? Do you want to use one of your 50 O3 things for the week? Those kinds of things I think are hard. And again, for me, if I just give myself permission, okay, fine. I can spend $50 in the API and I'm still like doing better.
You could just, pay like an extra. I know a lot of people pay multiple accounts. So instead of paying 200, they have like 3 accounts.
Oh.
Right. And so they got 30, and that's enough, right? It's like,
right.
3 accounts, that's 30. That's more than enough for what I'm specifically using. Do I need 200 of these things? The crazy part is the memory aspect, right? Because that starts playing into a fact. But if you're just using deep research, do you really, instead of paying 200, why don't you just open an account, like make 2 or 3 more accounts and get the extra 10 or 20 or 30? Or I don't know if anybody's tried deep research from Google. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
With the with 2.5 connected to it, it's pretty good. So there's that element too. I've yet to meet anybody who has told me I use the pro account for the Sora.
Yeah, no.
I've never heard of anyone.
Haven't heard that one yet. Gareth, I just want to share this really quick. Gareth, about 8 minutes ago, said, hey, we should create a GPT for all these tools. Well, you ask and you shall receive, Gareth. While everybody else was talking, I used O3 and created a new custom GPT that is going to help us figure out the things. I have not used it yet, so let's test it out right now. This was 100% built with O3. I did not edit or do anything else other than tell it exactly what we wanted. It suggested the name of the ChatGPT custom GPT should be OpenAI Model Advisor, to which OpenAI threw me a block and said that violates our naming convention, and so you can't call it that. So I had to dumb it down to just AI Model Advisor, which I think is funny that OpenAI did it. So it says, great, just give me 1 sentence overview of what you're building or exploring. All right, who's got an idea? What are we trying to build or explore? And let's see if it gives us the right model. I have no idea if this is going to work. Anybody got a suggestion? No. Okay.
Okay. Do it for Sensei. We're looking for a model that will speak in an engaging and knowledgeable way to instruct a user about a certain topic.
Well, in an agent that will to the user
teach. Just use the word teach. Teach a user about a topic and do it interactively.
All right, let's see what we get. Nice. Sounds like the interactive tutor or explainer. To recommend the right model, I'll ask a few questions. What kind of input and output? Is the user just typing and reading, or do you want voice, images, and other media? I mean, yes, please. What kind of topics will it teach? Are they academic? How interactive do you want it to be? For example, should it be quizzes or response by drawings? Any constraints? And also other capabilities needed. Okay, let's just answer these really quick. What type of reading do you want? Multimodal. For sure. What kind of topics do you want to teach? We'll say hobbies. Why not? 2 B's in that. 3, how to interact do you want to be? For example, should it quiz users to respond to drawings? Use Socratic questioning. And lots of, and now this is the way I like to learn. analogies, and stories. Y'all know me. That's how I like to learn. So that's what we're doing. Any constraints like cost per user, fast response time, or data privacy? Ooh, good question.
Let's say no for that.
No. And 5, other capabilities: multilingual, memory of past sessions, custom tone or personality. We'll go with memory. Let's see if it says.
Sure.
All right. I'm curious here. I'm curious what it's going to tell us. All right. You want a multimodal tutor for hobby learning that takes in text, images, possibly audio, responds with engaging conversational explanations, uses Socratic questioning analogies, remembers past interactions. Based on that, the top models would be GPT-4, as we did all that just to get back to 4.0. Combines top-tier reasoning with multimodal input and memory, ideal for rich interactive teaching. Alternatives would be GPT-4o Mini or 3.5 Turbo 1160. And I feel like it didn't pull in any of the new stuff.
No, and this is something that I find a lot in it's happening in transcript correction. So it's Google's information. It happens in Perplexity, and it happens in OpenAI models as well. Our transcript correction often says Gemini 2.5 is an error because the most recent power model is 1.5. Right. So these models have some sort of they're not updated on what the new models are and what their capabilities are. And even when you give them that data, they prioritize what they know to be the right model answers. So yeah.
Yeah. So not great because it doesn't seem to be pulling in the new models as part of that context. I just told it to go look at the internet, but I mean, at this point, I'm leading the witness. So it's, okay. But listen, my point is this, like, how quickly was I able to?
Which was, it said that 4.0, which you select either in the API or is the main model that you're using in chat, is updated to April 2025. And it is actually 4.1. That's what it told us. It's actually 4.1, but just they applied the learnings they accomplished in building 4.1 back to the 4.0 model because it's already strapped into all of their different systems. That's what I think they're saying there, and that's kind of an interesting observation.
I don't know if that's true, but yeah,
I'm going to say something that I know is controversial, but if you want up-to-date reactions about what people think is best and what people are talking about in terms of capabilities, you want to use Grok.
Oh, she said it. She did it.
Yeah, you want to go and you want to use Grok.
Or probably a more accurate platform is the Daily AI Show. So if you haven't liked and subscribed and joined our newsletter at thedailyAIshow.com, please go ahead and do so.
Or you want to.
Brian can multitask. Yeah, I can. Here's what I can do, Gwen. I can get AI to do stuff for me while all this stuff is going on. It's called agentic workflows. This is the future, folks. I can be on a conversation and talk to you guys and also build out fully functioning, GPTs and stuff like that on the side because I had O3 do the work for me with human in the loop.
And that's one of the things that O3 is referenced as. It is agentic. And if you give it the tools and understand, if you give it permission to use the tools, then it can do some things for you. And in fact, someone at OpenAI referred to it as deep research light, right? So it like you might try with O3 for something that you don't need to burn one of your 10 deep research things.
That's true.
Necessarily.
That's a good way to look at it. Well, here's something else I built. I built this last night. I have what you're seeing on the screen is my GTM, go to market. That's what that stands for. Training progress. So this is like, I was just talking to my boss last night. I was like, I had 47 for some reason, one way or the other, through all this stuff and all the experiences I've had. The one thing I feel like I'm missing, like it's just a black spot, if you will, or a blind spot really more than anything else in my work is like go to market strategy. I understand it basically, but if somebody told me to teach it back to them, I think I'd probably mess that up, And so I was like, yeah, he's like, well, look, go look for courses and stuff. I was like, I'm going to, because he's in AI too. I was like, I'm just going to have O3 build me a course and then I'll start there and all that. So this is what I built last night. Andy, with all of Andy's genius, taught us about using taxonomies, and I have gone back to that well many, many times. This is a poor man's Sensei, meaning that it's a very, very light version of the way Andy has built Sensei, which is much better. But the idea here is that it broke out the entire 8-week schedule. I want to spend 2 hours a week in 1 hour blocks. I wanted it to use analogies and stories. I wanted it to, so the stuff that I like, firefighting, cross, all that stuff, right? That I understand. So it's always teaching me and stuff. I told it about all the AI products and services I'm currently building or about to build and scaled, which is really important to me. I told it I wanted to give me YouTube videos, but I also wanted to give me certain clips of YouTube videos, which you can actually see over here starting at the 1:30. And then I said, give me an interactive dashboard that helps me with my overall progress, which is what you see on the right. So with some back and forth and go this and that and the other, there's a lot of discussion here with me. But ultimately, this is what you would see. First concept, I basically said, hey, stop giving me so much wall of text. Like nobody wants to read all that. Let's just keep it simple. And so you can see here, starting very first thing we're going to learn is about TAM, which is total addressable market. That part I actually did know, but it's starting me nice and easy at the very beginning of go-to-market strategy. And then over here, we have this nice little interactive. It says it'll update it itself. I don't believe that, but it says it'll do it through JSON. I think I have to do it. But as I click through the different weeks, I get a small progress bar for each week in session, and I also get a larger progress bar at the top that just shows me where my overall progress is. And I will just go back and forth. And even in week, what I had to do is in week 8, there's a assessment with like a live project, and there's like a 30 question multiple choice quiz that it's going to give me at the end of my 8 weeks to see if I have fully understood and comprehended go to market. So I don't know, what is that, like June or something? I'll report back in June on how intelligent and smart I've gotten. I also, by the way, had to tell me, hey, when I'm all done with this, go find me live workshops or conferences that match the end of this training program that I can go attend. Scaled will pay for it. That would reinforce this learning, but I can do it with peers and other people. And it actually did recommend a conference in marketing in Miami, which would be drivable for me right after I would finish this course. It's pretty cool, right?
Hey, Brian, that's very cool. Now in the chat, people are asking, give us that custom GPT, but it's not a custom GPT.
No, it's a prompt.
So explain the difference and what this is. This is not actually a shareable thing that he's built yet.
No, it's not. You would have to take my initial prompting in O3, which, is not terribly long. But then, there was a lot of back and forth. Like you can see here, okay, a few things. The dashboard is just code right now. It's not working. I also forgot to mention that blah, blah, blah. This is all the stuff that I did because I was like, talk about the Bulldogs, talk about CrossFit, talk about Nutrition WOD, bring all this stuff in there because I want to make sure I'm understanding this. And then where else? There were some other inputs in. I was giving it updates to the dashboard. Then it messed up the dashboard. You can actually see my answer. Nope, that sucks at one point of it. So we gave some quality feedback there. The dashboard, then this is me saying, you can't just throw me a wall of text and expect me to read all of it. And it's like, yep. And then it's a quick pulse check. I'm like, no idea what this means. You haven't told me yet. So there was just a little bit of back and forth, but it's just a conversation. The whole thing.
So let me ask you a few questions about this because it's a very interesting way of building out a course. How does O3 then in ChatGPT, and you're working in ChatGPT, right? And selecting that model with a pro account, not a pro account, but with a plus account, right? Okay. And how is it going to persist this dashboard across sessions? Like if you left this and then closed it and came back to your library, would it keep track of what you had previously? Does it have this persistent memory on this project is the question.
I don't think so, but let's find out. So I just made some updates to the dashboard here. Let's assume that I'm in my session 2 week, whatever, and I have to walk away and come back. And let's say my computer
crashed or whatever,
rebooted or something. So I guess we could just, what do you want to do? You just want to do a reload of the page and see what happens?
Yeah.
I don't believe so, Andy, but let's find out. It told me it would, but I kind of didn't.
I hope that O3 being their top model, will be able to do that.
I think I have to
Doesn't
go
seem to have
find.
generated the canvas.
They
Yeah.
tend to only keep things in memory, not to use their term, but usually for
There it is.
6 hours.
Woohoo.
Oh, it
So
did.
so I would like to see what it looks like tomorrow, because normally they'll keep it in their like files and things like that. So if you share a thread that has files and things, that will only stay in there for like 6 hours. So
Yeah, an
definitely check on
example
it
of that.
tomorrow,
Yeah,
and
well,
we can take a look. But it did look like they were loading a piece of code, so that would be awesome if that was put into the thread,
that's
and
what
then
it
it's just
said it was
extracting
doing.
that out.
It
So
said that it was adding code and it was going to back. And I don't know, like you could see a session ID here. It said when I built this out that it was going to generate, as I got through tasks on the left, it was going to generate new persistent JSON code on the right, so that every time it reloaded, it was up to date with wherever I currently was.
Wow. Okay.
Right?
Well, that's an interesting capability.
Let-
One of the things that is an example of this lack of persistence is that in a project that I have, it will generate a CSV for download for me. But if I get interrupted and I go away for even 4 or 5 minutes and come back, the code interpreter session in that has been curtailed.
Yep.
And then that file's no longer available. I have to ask it to regenerate it. And it can do that because it has the whole context of that chat to look at. So it'll do it again. But the question here is, have they added a persistent code memory to this particular chat that'll survive till tomorrow? If not, I recommend that you copy that code and keep it in another external file and just add it back tomorrow. And that'll keep track of your progress through the thing.
I will 100% report back on that. I didn't even think it would have the update. So I had very low confidence that it was even going to do what it just did. But yeah, let's find out whether it hard coded that in. My understanding is that is exactly what happened. It updated the code. And so next time I come in, it should read the updated code and bring whatever I was on it. It also said it was going to check them off for me. I haven't started the course yet. So, but look, this is my point to this, guys. So the reason I bring this up, and I'm glad people in the chat are excited about this and whatever. My point to this is this, and Andy, full credit to you on this with what you built with Sensei. But the idea is, I'm not going to go as far as like colleges and stuff, but when I was talking to Jake last night, and we were talking about go-to-market strategy, we looked up USF courses, we looked at this, and we looked at that, and whatever. And look, go-to-market strategy is probably solid enough that I could go to USF and I could take a course. It's not like I need them to know what happened yesterday. There's updates to marketing and stuff, but there's that sense of like, are they going to be of the moment, of the time, right? And my point to it was, yes, I do. I do want to be out of this office, and I would love nothing more to be in a room full of peers who are also getting this new knowledge. And there's so many courses and conferences and academies and stuff, all of which, by the way, Scale was like, just Jake, meaning my boss, was like, just go tell me what you want to do and we'll pay for it, because you've identified that this is a sort of a blind spot for you. It's going to be great for your career. Just do it. Right. I'm very lucky that way, in that sense that I have support. But my answer was like, but hold on, can I just go build this myself and make it super tailored to the way I learn, so that it's always something I want to come back to? I don't want to get bored with this. I want to be excited to do my 2 hours of blocked off, continuing education. And honestly, if they're talking about the Georgia Bulldogs, or they're talking about AI, or they're talking about firefighting, or something that I know and love and have a passion for, I'm going to keep coming back to that well, and I'm going to keep learning. And I've got my little tracker here. Like, what's the harm in me doing this for 8 weeks and then going, now where am I still deficient? Now, how could human to human interaction really take this to the next level? And that's kind of the way I look at it. Let me do the personalized learning, then let me get in a room full of peers and hopefully knock this out of the park. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think that's the way it's going to be in the future. And what you've demonstrated here is using O3, their most powerful reasoning model, to kind of agentically build a course with you in a conversational dialogue where you did leadership prompting, guiding it along the way to get to the result that you wanted. Eventually, you'll be able to just say to your personal agent, which will have the power of an advanced reasoning model like O3 behind it, hey, I want to learn about go to market strategy. Build me a course. Thanks. That's all. And it's going to go through all the steps you went through to get to a refined and useful output, understanding what you do because it has memory about your preferences in learning, and you'll be able to develop a course like that on the fly.
Here's another way you can use it that's just sort of a silly one, but I just threw like 30 of Jake's, literally copy and paste 30 of Jake's different LinkedIn posts. And I was like, hey, create me an interactive dashboard that's like of the stuff Jake is talking about in these posts. Just think about how cool this would to be turned if you're in sales, how quickly you could turn this around to somebody that like you want to reach out to and just kind of have a wow factor with them. Because I can go up here and hit new tips. And these tips are sales tips coming from Jake from the stuff he's written in his last 30 odd posts, but I could have certainly given it more detail. So like little things like this, discovery call prep, if I enter the company name contact, it'll actually generate the prompt for me. So if I say like Asana, a contact name, I want to talk to the CRO, and a helpful link would be asana.com. And then Jake was talking about this in one of his things. And then boom, here's the copy with a copy link of the exact prompt that I could go and use based off of Jake's teachings inside his LinkedIn post. Or if I want to get new tips here, or if I want to get, his prompt program for things I can track, or if I want to look and see if I'm right where I need to be for my pipeline. That was all built by O3 in like 10 minutes. And just think, if you could do that in 10 minutes, what does that mean? Yes, for yourself, but if you're in the world of sales, like I teach people into, I'm always looking for a differentiator. So go spend 10 minutes building something cool like this, and then go put it on a Vidyard or a Loom and send it. And be like, hey, look at this cool thing I made off of all your LinkedIn posts. Do you not think somebody who you're trying to reach out to, if you said, I just made this thing about all your super cool LinkedIn posts, they're not going to have a little bit of a human like, well, I mean, my ego says I kind of want to see what they built. So if you're trying to get the attention of somebody in an email and you want them to click through, go stroke their ego with all their content from LinkedIn, which is publicly available, and then go build something better than this, that you could just trade out new, executives that it just keeps updating that demo, and then send that to 15 or 20 people. See what kind of click-through rate you get, and see if you get an instant, like an initial email response from a cold outreach. I bet you're going to have a high rate. So this is the kind of stuff that gets me excited, because I want people to see the power of using O3 or something like that to differentiate, to stand out from the crowd, to do something nobody else is doing, because they're not listening to this show and they're not thinking about it. So
one thing I wanted to just build on what Brian said here, and something that you could definitely try, and more, because I know everybody has their own specific use, how they want to use these models. And sometimes you're like, okay, you have these brand new models. Maybe you don't want to read all the everything about them, or have to wait for whether it's YouTube people who are essentially like, here's potential use cases, right? So first thing is, remember that all these companies are providing us the models, and it's kind of a blank slate. It's our ability. So like what Brian did in terms of sales, there's so many things that, what can I potentially use this model for? What I like to do sometimes with brand new models is ask whatever model it is, hey, you search, learn everything you know about this new model, right? Google has a good one, OpenAI, whichever tool, it doesn't matter. Have it research it, right? So it has like a base, especially in your thread. And then it's like, oh, do some more research. Cool. And then give it the context, give it your specific context. So like whether you're Brian in sales, whether for me, here's the things that you know about me. Here's the things that our business does. Give me some examples of how we could use it for this, or whatever the context. It is like 04 and 03 are pretty good at providing you that, its potential, because it's learned about it, and just gives you an idea of how to use some of these tools that sometimes it's such a blank slate. They're like, what can I do differently that I haven't been able to do before? With like, how different is 03 mini high than 04 mini high, or so on and so forth. And I was looking at some of the things that we can do from a model site. Like one thing that we've always been wanting to do is, this scenario has come up a lot of times, is people in construction, in real estate, they always go out to job sites and review, like you look for errors in whatever they've built, and they have to do reporting. Now, the easy part is the automation of that reporting, right? Like, easy part is create an automation. All you do is talk, and then, that automation creates a report at the end of the day. But the extra piece of that is what I think excites me about O3, and what, after I did the exact thing I just said, is that it's the ability in the multimodal aspect to take pictures and zoom in is much better than some of the other models in the past. So now that is an opportunity to not just automate the report, but then automate the actual picture taking as well. So once the picture goes, it's like, oh, it's included, and it picks up what the error was, instead of having to fine tune all the errors that you're possibly going to see. You probably still want to fine tune, but like, hey, maybe it can do it now, because now it's much better recognizing, right? So when they were doing the demo of having it zoom in and closer and closer and understanding it, that in itself is a pretty good use case. But I wouldn't have known unless I did that. So highly recommend you figure out in your specific use case, ask it what specifically. But I like putting in the context of learn everything you know about this model. So you could even deep research it and then start asking the questions based on.
I love that idea.
Right.
Yeah, it's like you're like priming the model basically at that point. Yeah, that's a really smart idea. Look, the main thing here as we wrap up is, go play, go ask more things, and don't ask about things you already know. Ask it things that you don't know that are outside of your scope. Like I did with the go to market. Like we now have tools at $20 a month and across the board with other tools like with Claude and stuff like that, and Perplexity for $60 a month. Like get your business to pay for it if you can, or whatever. Explain to them the value of you having something at $60 a month and what it could do for you, because it's nearly unlimited of how far you can go, and we're no longer limited by where you sit. You're just limited by a good internet connection, a moderate internet connection at that, and how far you're willing to explore and get outside your comfort zone to it. So I always say, like, don't ask it to think like you. You got you. You're already good. You got you. Think it to ask like somebody else. Put on a different hat. Look critically back at your work. Give it a slide deck. Give it a presentation. Give it all your custom GPT instructions and say, hey, what would be new and novel about doing this differently? I don't want a recap of this. Look at it and then tell me how you would break this down and do it differently and why. And I think you're going to be really, really amazed at the kind of stuff you get back, but you got to be willing to go in and play. So Dustin's asking us for more content where we do live demos. Dustin, I will tell you that our Be About It show that we did a couple weeks ago was one of our most highly rated. So that is something that we're taking very seriously. And within the next week, we'll have another, what we call a Be About It show. That was sort of the theme of it, where we're doing more and more demos, and we'll make sure that we get those out to you guys as well. So thank you for the input on that. And
a week from tomorrow, actually, it'll be next Friday.
So tomorrow, speaking of, is our 2-week recap show. We're out of time today, but hey, look, there's a lot here in the models. More people are going to do more examples across Twitter and other places. And so we'll have more of that to show, but we'll also talk about all the topics from the last 2 weeks. It's always a great show. Come back and hang out with us. Saturday, I'll have out the new Conundrum episode, which is always fun. That's AI generated with a little bit of my touch in there. Sunday, we have the newsletter. And do we also have the Sci-Fi AI show tomorrow? What 1 p.m. Pacific?
1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Hope to see you there.
Awesome. So check out the Sci-Fi AI show tomorrow. We'll have our live show tomorrow, but that'll be later in the afternoon as well. Lots going on as always, guys. Thank you, Dustin, for saying you love the conundrums. I appreciate you. I love them too. And we'll be back tomorrow with our 2-week recap and lots more. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Have a great day.
Aloha.
Excellent.
back.
Thanks for the after show, everybody. If you stayed, go ahead and click like, give us a little heart, because now we are actually going to end the stream. Thanks.
Bye.